Manchester City have been a powerhouse in English football for the last decade. Since Sheikh Mansour's takeover in 2008, the citizens have dominated domestically, winning 6 of the last 11 Premier League titles and lifting several cups. With the backing of their billionaire owners, City have continued to spend big year after year, regularly recruiting the best talents in world football, with Norwegian Erling Haaland being the latest star to arrive at the Etihad. First breaking onto the scene in 2019-20 with RB Salzburg, Haaland notched an incredible 16 goals and 6 assists in 14 Austrian Premier League appearances. But it was his Champions League performances that really caught the eye, netting 8 times in 6 group games, including goals against European giants Liverpool and Napoli. Haaland exploded onto the scene, earning himself a January move to Borussia Dortmund. Continuing his blistering form, Haaland scored an insane 86 goals and picked up 23 assists in 89 club appearances, even helping Dortmund to a German Cup in his season and a half at the club. However, his time in the Bundesliga was always going to be short-lived, with Dortmund agreeing to a £51.2 million release clause active from the end of the 2021-22 season, which Manchester City were quick to trigger come last summer's transfer window. This saw Haaland become the latest jewel in Man City's crown, with fans rejoicing at signing perhaps the most sought-after attacking talent in world football. More than anything, City fans were excited at the prospect of Haaland linking up with midfield maestro Kevin De Bruyne, with the Belgian being the Premier League's best creator over recent seasons and perhaps even the best attacking midfielder in the world. But with that being said, even though Haaland has been imperious this season, and make no mistake, he has been, there's an argument to be made that the Norwegian powerhouse has made Man City a worse team this season. Granted, given that Haaland is scoring at more than a goal per game in the league, this might seem hard to believe. But if you look past his goals, Haaland certainly changes City's style of play. That said, let's take a deeper dive into Haaland, City and the surrounding cast and explore the pros and cons of his place in the Sky Blues. What has Haaland brought to City? To put it simply, goals, and lots of them. Haaland is a serial scorer. At the time of writing, in 33 appearances across all competitions, the Norwegian has 33 goals and 4 assists. Looking at the underlying numbers, Haaland's return rate comes as no surprise, as he ranks amongst the elite in Europe's top 5 leagues for all desired measurable metrics for a striker, taking 3.37 shots per game and averaging 1.61 on target is certainly a desirable trait as far as Haaland is concerned, but this primarily comes from his positioning. As seen, the Norwegian spends most of the game planted centrally in the opposition box, meaning when he does get a chance to shoot, it's more often than not from a good range and angle, backed up by his average shooting distance being 12.8 yards, just further out than the penalty spot. In establishing himself as a presence for defenders, he is regularly doubled up on. His teammates like Jack Grealish and Riyad Mahrez, City's most common wide duo this season, are afforded more room, allowing them greater influence in games. Last season, Grealish had just 3 goals and assists. However, this campaign, the winger has already bettered that tally with 3 goals and 4 assists in 7 fewer appearances. Granted, this is partly down to his newfound familiarity with Guardiola's system, but the presence of Haaland to draw in defenders and force fullbacks to sit narrower to help defend against the Norwegian has allowed Grealish more freedom with the ball when wide. Furthermore, for a winger like Grealish, having a reliable striker who will always be in and around the box is invaluable. He knows there will always be a target for any speculative crosses or cutbacks into the box. This is partly why Phil Foden has been used sparingly by Guardiola this season, as pairing Haaland with a more conventional winger such as Grealish plays to the duo's strengths. In short, and to reiterate, Haaland offers City one thing: goals, and plenty of them. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. When Haaland was signed, critics quickly voiced concerns that Guardiola doesn't use conventional number 9s, but this isn't true. It was the Spaniard who pioneered Messi's switch to a false 9 from his previous right-wing position, and at Bayern Munich, he used Robert Lewandowski to great effect. At Manchester City, legendary striker Sergio Aguero played significantly more minutes under Guardiola as number 9 than any other coach during his time in the Premier League, scoring an impressive 124 goals and and picking up 29 assists in 182 appearances. So make no mistake, Guardiola can get the best out of a striker. But that being said, Haaland is unlike any other forward Guardiola has coached in his career, staying largely uninvolved in building up play until the ball comes into the box. This is clearly illustrated in Haaland's touch map. 21% of the forward's touches per game, of which he averages just 24.93, come centrally in the box, with another 10% coming on either side, predominantly from the left owing to him being left-footed. While his rate of 6.46 touches in the opposition box is elite for a forward, Manchester City demands more from their talisman than simply being a penalty box poacher, and that is where Haaland could ultimately be hindering the team. Last season, Guardiola used a combination of Gabriel Jesus, Kevin De Bruyne and Phil Foden through the middle. However, their attack was more built to operate as a unit, with players regularly interchanging roles in the game, dropping deep and moving forward collectively. So having Haaland sit idly up top while his teammates do all the progression work sees him essentially a man down at the creative stage compared to last season, negating a core principle of a Guardiola side. And in comparing Jesus' heat map last season with that of Haaland this season, the stylistic change is evident. Granted, Jesus was sometimes deployed on the right by Guardiola, so his heat map has to be looked at with a pinch of salt, but the differences between himself and Haaland are apparent. The Brazilian was willing to drop deeper on either side of the pitch, preferring to occupy wide positions in the box rather than sit on the penalty spot like Haaland, allowing City's wingers and attacking midfielders to bounce off Jesus with 1-2s and interchanging in their tiki-taka attacks. Moreover, in place of Haaland's 25 touches per game, Jesus put up significantly more with 40, meaning Jesus was more involved in the game and general build-up play intrinsic of a Guardiola striker. But granted, City's drop-off isn't all Haaland's fault, at least not directly, given that the Sky Blues boast perhaps the best creative assets and finisher in the league. Teams regularly deploy a low block against them. We've seen this done with vastly differing degrees of success in the last couple of games with Nottingham Forest and Bournemouth, with the first taking a credible 1-1 draw, whereas the latter was on the end of a 4-1 humbling in which they could have easily conceded more. This again, for Haaland and in turn City, creates a problem. At Salzburg and Dortmund, Haaland made his name for being a pacey, powerful striker who would run in behind and beat the goalkeeper 9 times out of 10. But at City, we've only seen that side of his game sporadically. This is down to two main factors: breaking down the low block from the opposition, and that's not City's game. They prefer slow build-ups, meticulous passing and tap-ins. Ultimately, Haaland isn't being given the space to run into, and even if he were, most of City's players, with the exception of De Bruyne, aren't looking for him, at least naturally. However, the goals are still flowing for Man City, but they are not scoring significantly more with Haaland in the team. At the time of writing, City have scored 64 goals after 25 Premier League games. At the same stage last season, City recorded just 3 less with 61 goals. This, again in turn, means Man City have an element of predictability about them that wasn't present last season, as rather than having an elaborate display of interchanging attackers, plays and patterns, teams know City will look to find Haaland in the box, meaning they can pinpoint the Sky Blues' chief threat long before the game even kicks off. Without blaming Haaland too much, it must be remembered that most of City's current squad aren't used to playing with a striker in Haaland's mould, so it may take time to get used to. But then it could be argued, why fix City when things weren't broken? After all, they won the league with 93 points last season and lost just 3 games. What's the verdict? As mentioned, it's hard to consider a player with 33 goals in 33 games in his debut season for a club could ever be a problem. Yet for Man City, this could be the case. One final argument to be made in Haaland's defence is that key players in Joao Cancelo, before he switched to Bayern Munich, and Kevin De Bruyne look a shadow of their former selves this season. But that could be countered by the improvements seen in Grealish, John Stones, and the latest youngster to emerge from City's academy, Rico Lewis. Ultimately, whether Haaland has or hasn't improved or worsened City will always be up for debate, and may even come down to personal preference. However, if he goes on to score the winner in this season's Champions League final, this mid-season conundrum will undoubtedly be forgotten.